Hi guys, and welcome to Bedtime History Relaxing. Tonight we step quietly into a narrow attic room above a Parisian townhouse where the air is thin. The ceiling slopes close above your head and the city has not yet decided whether it is night or morning. You lie on a small bed that creaks if you breathe too deeply, wrapped in a blanket that never quite holds the warmth. Somewhere beyond the roof the wind brushes against the chimneys, and below you the house waits in layered silence. It is a calm moment, almost peaceful if you do not think too hard about what the day will demand. Because gently speaking, you probably would not survive this life without learning to move quietly, and without complaint. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you feel like it, share your location and the time where you are right now. Now dim the lights. You wake not because you're rested, but because something inside you has learned to rise before the day arrives. The darkness in the attic is not complete, but it is thick enough that shapes feel uncertain. You blink slowly, letting your eyes adjust, noticing the faint grey line where the roof meets the small window. It is not yet sunrise, but it is close enough that the world is beginning to loosen its hold on the night. The cold reaches you first, it settles in your hands, your face, the tip of your nose. You pull the blanket closer for a moment, just a moment, knowing that staying here longer will cost you later. Time is not something you own. It belongs to the house, and the house will begin without you if you hesitate. You sit up. The bed responds with a quiet complaint, wood shifting slightly under your weight. You pause, listening as if the sound might carry downward through the floors and announce your delay. It does not. The house remains still, holding its breath in that fragile space before movement begins. Your feet touch the floor, cold wood, not painfully so, but enough to remind you that comfort is not part of this arrangement. You stand slowly, rolling your shoulders, feeling the stiffness from yesterday linger in your back and arms. It is a familiar weight. Not sharp, not new, just present, like something that has decided to stay. There is a widely accepted understanding among historians that servants in 19th century Paris often began their workday before dawn, especially in larger households where fires had to be lit and water prepared before the family stirred. You're living inside that quiet expectation now, though no one needs to say it out loud. You reach for your clothes. They are simple, practical, and slightly damp from the chill of the room. Fabric that has been worn, washed and worn again until it has lost any sense of softness. You dress quickly, not because you are rushed yet, but because you know that the feeling of being behind can arrive without warning. The small window draws your attention. You move toward it, careful with your steps, and push it open just enough to let the outside air slip in. It is colder there, sharper, carrying the faint scent of smoke and something distant, perhaps bread, beginning to bake in another part of the city. Paris is waking, but slowly. From up here you do not see much, only rooftops, chimneys, and a narrow slice of sky that is beginning to pale. Still, it is enough to remind you that the world is larger than the rooms you serve in. Larger, but not necessarily kinder. There is a curious detail sometimes mentioned in personal diaries from domestic workers of this era, that attic rooms like yours were often chosen not only for their distance from the family, but because heat rises. In theory, it made these spaces slightly warmer in winter. In practice, as you already know, warmth is never guaranteed. You close the window again. Your breath lingers faintly in the air, visible for a moment before it disappears. You watch it without thinking, as if it might tell you something about the day ahead. It does not. A soft sound reaches you from below. Not a voice. Not yet. More like the house adjusting itself. Wood settling perhaps, or a distant door shifting. It is enough. The stillness is ending. You move toward the door. Your hand rests briefly on the handle, and for a moment you allow yourself a pause. Not resistance, not reluctance, just a small space where you're neither in the attic nor in the work below. A place that belongs only to you, even if it lasts no longer than a breath. Historians continue to discuss whether servants experience these early morning moments as a form of quiet autonomy, or simply as another extension of labour shaped by routine rather than choice. Standing here, you might feel that it is both, a thin line between something personal and something required. You open the door. The corridor beyond is darker than your room narrow. and enclose the walls close enough that your shoulder nearly brushes them as you step out. The air smells faintly of dust and old wood layered with something harder to name. Time, perhaps. Your steps are careful. Not because the floor is fragile, but because sound travels. You've learnt this already, even if no one explained it directly. Noise has consequences. Silence is safer. You begin to move, one step then another, your body settling into a rhythm that feels both automatic and deliberate. There is no rush yet, but there is no wandering either. Each movement has a purpose, even if that purpose has not fully revealed itself to you. The staircase waits at the end of the corridor, narrow, steep, built more for function than comfort. You approach it, placing your hand lightly against the wall as you begin to descend. The wood beneath your feet is worn in the centre, shaped by countless steps taken before yours. A quiet reminder that you are part of something ongoing, something that does not pause. As you move downward, the air changes. It becomes slightly warmer, carrying new scents. Ash, damp stone, the faintest trace of yesterday's cooking. These are the smells of the house beginning to wake, though the people within it still sleep. A small, almost unnoticed detail appears as you reach the next landing. A faint line of light beneath a distant door. Someone else is already awake. You are not alone in this early hour, even if you have not yet seen another face. The house is beginning its quiet coordination, each servant moving within their own path, their own set of expectations, all of it unfolding without announcement. There is a lesser known but documented habit in some Parisian households where senior servants would rise even earlier than the rest, ensuring that the initial tasks were already underway before others joined. It is possible that the light you see belongs to one of them, or perhaps to someone like you simply unable to risk being late. You continue downward. The steps creak softly, but not enough to draw attention. You have learned where to place your feet, how to shift your weight, how to move in a way that leaves as little trace as possible. At the bottom of the staircase, you pause again. The house stretches out before you, now unseen but present. Rooms layered one after another, each holding its own purpose, its own demands. Above, the attic already feels distant, like something you have stepped away from rather than left behind. You take a breath, slow, measured. The day has not fully begun, but it is close. You can feel it gathering like a quiet pressure that will soon turn into motion. For now, though, there is this moment, dim light, soft air, the sense of something about to unfold. You step forward, and the house in its quiet way begins with you. The air feels different here. Not warmer exactly, but less exposed than the attic. The walls seem thicker, the silence more contained, as if the house itself is holding its breath just a little longer before releasing the day. You stand at the bottom of the narrow staircase for a moment, letting your eyes adjust again, letting your body settle into this new layer of space. Then you begin. Your steps carry you along a back corridor that curves gently out of sight. The floor is smoother here, worn by years of quiet movement. You keep close to the wall without thinking about it, instinct guiding you into the paths that servants follow without ever being shown. There is a door ahead. You reach it and open it carefully, easing it just enough to pass through without sound. On the other side, the faint smell of ash greets you more clearly now, mixed with something damp and mineral like stone that has held cold through the night. This is where the morning truly begins. One of the most commonly recorded routines in Parisian households of the early 19th century is the lighting of fires before sunrise. Without this, the house remains cold, stiff and unwelcoming, no matter how grand its furnishings may be. You are part of that invisible transformation, the quiet shift from stillness to comfort, that no one upstairs will ever witness. The hearth sits dark and silent. You approach it with a kind of practiced calm, even if your hands still carry a trace of sleep. The ashes from the previous day lie settled in a soft grey layer, faintly uneven, as if they remember the last flickers of warmth. You kneel. The stone beneath your knees is cold, pressing upward through the thin fabric of your clothes. You do not rush. There is a sequence to this, a rhythm that you're beginning to understand. You clear a small space. Your fingers move through the ash, carefully pushing it aside, exposing the darker surface beneath. The motion is gentle, deliberate. Too fast, and the ash lifts into the air, clinging to your skin, your sleeves, your breath. Then the wood. Small pieces first. You place them in a loose arrangement, not too tight, not too scattered. Enough space for air, enough structure to catch the flame. Larger pieces will come later. This is only the beginning. There is a faint satisfaction in this part, though you would not name it as such. It is something quieter. A sense that this moment belongs to you more than most others will. You reach for the tinder, dry brittle, easily broken between your fingers. You tuck it beneath the wood, adjusting it slightly until it sits just right. You do not question how you know, you simply do. A small spark, then another. The flame hesitates at first, as if uncertain whether it should exist at all. Then it takes slowly, carefully spreading along the edges of the tinder, catching the wood in a soft growing glow. You watch it, just for a second, not out of wonder, but out of necessity. A fire must be observed in its first moments. Left alone too soon, it fades. Given too much, attention overwhelms. This balance is everything. There is an interesting note found in some household manuals of the time, suggesting that a well-tended fire was considered a reflection of a servant's competence, even their character. A weak flame implied carelessness. A strong, steady one suggested reliability. You feed it a little more wood, not too much. The flame responds, brightening, settling into something more confident. The room shifts almost immediately. The air softens. The cold pulls back slightly, though it does not disappear. You stand. Your knees protest quietly as you rise, a reminder that the day has already begun its slow work on your body. You brush your hands together, though the ash does not fully leave your skin. It never does. There is no pause. Another task waits. You move toward a basin set against the wall, its surface dull in the low light. The water inside is still untouched since yesterday. A thin layer of chill rests over it, visible in the faint way it reflects the room. You dip your fingers in. Cold, sharper than the air, immediate and undeniable. You pull your hand back quickly, then return it more slowly, allowing your skin to adjust. This is the water that will be carried heated, used and replaced again and again throughout the day. You lift the container. It is heavier than it looks even now. By the time the day is done, your arms will know its weight in a way that words cannot fully explain. You step back into the corridor. The house is still quiet, but not as silent as before. There are small signs of movement now. A distant footstep, the faint closing of a door. The beginning of other routines unfolding alongside your own. Historians often note that servants operated within a tightly coordinated system, rising and working in overlapping patterns that ensured the household functioned smoothly without visible effort. You are part of that pattern now, even if you do not see its full shape. You carry the water carefully, each step measured, not because you are afraid of spilling, but because you understand that every action has a consequence. A spill means more work, more time, more attention. The corridor turns. You follow it, passing doors that remain closed, each one holding a room that will soon require your presence. For now they are quiet, unuttered, as if the night still lingers inside them. You reach another staircase, wider than the first but no less steep. This one leads toward the parts of the house that the family will use. You hesitate for a fraction of a second before stepping onto it. There is an unspoken rule here. You move but you do not intrude. You work but you do not exist. It's a delicate balance, one that no one explains directly. You learn it through small corrections, through glances, through the absence of acknowledgement. You begin to climb. The water shifts slightly with each step, its surface trembling in response to your movement. You adjust your grip, steadying it, your focus narrowing to the simple act of reaching the top without error. Halfway up you hear it, a faint sound from above, a door opening, then closing again. The household is waking, not fully, not yet, but enough that your time in the quiet margins is ending. Soon your work will be seen, even if you are not. There is a lesser discussed aspect of servant life that appears in personal accounts. The idea that the earliest hours of the morning were the only time when a servant could move through the house without direct supervision. After that, every action existed within the awareness of others. You reach the top of the stairs. The light here is slightly stronger, filtering in through tall windows that face the street. It is still dim, but it carries the promise of day in a way that the attic never did. You set the water down briefly, just long enough to adjust your hands to release the tension that has begun to build in your fingers. Then you lift it again, continuing forward. The rooms ahead will need to be prepared. The fire's lit, the water warmed, the surfaces cleaned, all before the first request is spoken. You move through the hallway, your steps quiet, your presence almost invisible even to yourself. The house is no longer asleep, but it is not yet fully awake either. This is the narrow space you work within. Between stillness and expectation, between silence and demand, you reach the first door. Your hand rises, pauses, then gently turns the handle. The day continues. The door opens with only the faintest shift in sound. You slip inside sideways, careful not to let the handle click, and the first thing that meets you is warmth. Not strong, not complete, but enough to feel like a different world from the corridor. The kitchen has already begun to breathe. A low fire glows at the far hearth. Someone has been here before you. You notice it immediately, the way the embers hold their shape, the way the first pieces of wood have already caught. A quiet confirmation that the house is waking in layers, each person entering the day at a slightly different moment. You step further in. The air carries more than heat. It holds scent, damp cloth, old smoke, the faint trace of yesterday's broth lingering in the stone and wood. It is not unpleasant, but it is dense textured, something you feel as much as smell. Finally, the voice comes from the side, low and not unkind, but edged with expectation. You turn. The cook stands near a long wooden table, sleeves rolled, hands already moving through a pile of vegetables. You had not seen them at first, but now their presence fills the room as much as the fire does. You lower your gaze slightly, not in fear, in recognition. There is an order here just as clear as any written rule, even if it has never been spoken to you directly. You set the water down where it belongs. No instruction needed. The cook nods once, already turning back to their work. That is all the acknowledgement you receive, and for now it is enough. The kitchen stretches around you larger than it seemed from the doorway. Hooks line the walls holding pots, pans, tools that catch the early light in dull reflections. A long table sits at the centre, worn smooth by years of use, its surface marked by cuts and stains that no scrubbing has ever fully removed. This is the true heart of the house. There is a commonly accepted observation among social historians that kitchens in wealthy Parisian homes functioned as centres of controlled chaos, where multiple servants worked in tight coordination to produce the appearance of effortless abundance upstairs. Standing here, you can already feel that quiet intensity beginning to build. You move without being told. There are tasks that belong to you even if no one has listed them. You reach for a cloth, dampen it, and begin to wipe the table. The motion is steady, repetitive, familiar, even if the day has only just begun. The surface resists at first, then yields. A thin layer of yesterday lifts away, leaving behind something cleaner, though never truly clean. You will need to fetch more wood soon. The cook speaks again, not looking at you. You nod. Yes. Your voice is quiet, almost blending into the sounds of the room. It feels strange to hear it after so much silence. There is a rhythm here. Chop, set aside, turn, stir. The cook moves with a certainty that you watch without appearing to watch. Every motion has purpose, nothing is wasted, even the pauses feel intentional. You wonder briefly how long it took to learn this. There is a lesser-known detail in some household accounts that experienced cooks often held a kind of informal authority within the servant hierarchy, sometimes rivaling even the household steward. Their control over food gave them a certain power, subtle but undeniable. You keep wiping. The cloth grows darker as it collects what the table releases. You rinse it, wring it out, continue. The cycle repeats, steady and unremarkable, yet essential. A second figure enters, the scullery maid. You recognize her by the quickness of her steps, the way she moves as if already late, even when she is not. She carries a stack of dishes, setting them down with care that barely masks her urgency. You are early, she murmurs to you almost as a question. Not early enough, you reply softly. She gives a small, brief smile at that, then turns immediately to her work. Water splashes. Ceramic touches ceramic. The sound is sharp at first, then settles into a softer rhythm as she adjusts her pace. The kitchen grows fuller, not crowded yet, but alive. You move to the next task without pause. A basket of vegetables waits near the wall. You carry it to the table, setting it within reach of the cook, who takes what they need without breaking their rhythm. There is a quiet understanding in these exchanges. No thanks. No acknowledgement beyond what is necessary. Yet everything is noticed. Historians continue to debate whether this kind of silent cooperation among servants fostered a sense of community or simply reinforced the rigid structure of the household. As you stand here, passing items, adjusting positions, you might feel both at once. The fire crackles softly. You glance toward it, noting how it has grown, how the flames now move with more confidence. It will need tending again soon. Everything does. Bread will come up first, the cook says almost to the room itself. You nod again, though the words are not directed only at you. Still you take them in. They shape the next steps, the sequence of what must happen. You reach for a knife. Not for cutting, not yet, but to move a cluster of vegetables closer, arranging them in a way that makes the work easier for the cook. It's a small adjustment, but one that matters. A widely accepted fact about servant labour in this period, Morsim, is that much of it involved anticipation rather than reaction. The best servants were those who could act before being asked, reducing the need for instruction. You are beginning to understand this. The scullery maid glances up. Did you sleep? She asks, her tone light but her eyes curious. Enough, you say. It is not entirely true, but it is close enough. She nods as if the answer satisfies her, then returns to her work. There is no space here for long conversation. Words are brief, functional, like the movements that accompany them. You feel the warmth more now. It reaches your hands, your face easing the edge of the cold that followed you down from the attic. It does not remove it completely, but it softens it, making it easier to forget. For a moment, you lift another container, carry it to the side, fill it, return it. The motions repeat, layering over one another until they form a pattern that requires little thought. Time shifts. Not quickly, but steadily. The light in the room changes, growing stronger, filtering in through a small window that had gone unnoticed before. It reveals more detail now, the grain of the wood, the fine lines in the stone, the faint wear on the handles of tools used countless times. You are part of this now, not observing, not separate, but moving within it. The cook pauses briefly, tasting something from a spoon, then adjusts the pot with a slight turn of the wrist. No words are needed. The correction is immediate, precise. You watch just for a second, then look away. There is always more to do. You reach for the wood. It is stacked near the back, uneven but sufficient. You gather a few pieces, carry them to the hearth, and place them carefully onto the growing fire. The flames respond, rising slightly, then settling again. Balance. Always balance. A quiet, almost overlooked observation found in some diaries mentions that servants often judge the progress of the day not by clocks, but by the state of the kitchen. The fire, the preparation, the sounds, all of it forming a kind of living measure of time. If that is true, then the day has begun in earnest. You stand for a moment, not still, but not moving quickly either. The kitchen is no longer quiet. It hums, softly, steadily, and you, without realizing it, have found your place within that sound. The warmth of the kitchen lingers on your hands as you step back into the corridor, but it fades quickly. The air here feels thinner again, carrying a different kind of stillness. Not the quiet of sleep, but the quiet of spaces waiting to be made presentable. You carry a bundle of linens pressed loosely against your side, their weight soft but constant, and follow the passage that leads toward the washing area. It is not far. Nothing in this house ever feels far in distance, only an effort. You push open another door and the scent reaches you immediately. Soap! Sharp. Clean in a way that almost feels artificial, as if it is trying to erase something deeper than dirt. Beneath it there is the faint smell of damp fabric of water that has been used and replaced so many times it has lost any sense of freshness. You step inside. The room is colder than the kitchen, though not as exposed as the attic. A basin sits at the centre, already half-filled, surface trembling slightly as you approach. Beside it, a board rests at an angle, worn smooth in places, rough in others. You set the linens down. They unfold slightly, revealing their condition more clearly now. White, or something that once was white, marked by faint discolorations, traces of use that must be removed before they return upstairs. You roll your sleeves. The fabric resists for a moment, stiff with yesterday's damp, then gives way. Your hands hover briefly over the water as if remembering the cold before feeling it again. Then you begin. You dip the first piece of linen into the basin. The water takes it slowly, darkening the fabric, pulling it downward. You press it under your fingers, spreading the cloth, letting the liquid move through every fold. Cold, immediate. It reaches your skin without hesitation, settling into your bones in a way that feels deeper than it should. You exhale softly, then lift the linen and lay it across the board. The scrubbing begins, back and forth. Firm, steady strokes, not hurried but not gentle either. There is a technique to this one that is rarely explained in words. Pressure angle rhythm. Too soft and the stains remain, too harsh and the fabric weakens, phrase shortens its life. You find the balance, or at least you try to. A well-established detail from household records of the period notes that laundering was among the most physically demanding tasks assigned to servants, often performed with minimal tools and in cold conditions that made the work even more taxing. You feel that truth now, not as a fact, but as a sensation spreading through your hands. You pause only to rinse. The water shifts, clouding slightly as it takes on what you remove. You wring the cloth, twisting it until the excess runs back into the basin, then lay it aside. Another piece, then another. The repetition settles in quickly. There is something almost hypnotic about it. The motion repeats your body, learning the rhythm faster than your mind can follow. Scrub, rinse, wring, set aside. The sounds are soft. Water moving. Fabric against wood. Your own breath steady, unremarkable. A small detail sometimes mentioned in personal recollections is that certain servants would quietly mark linens with tiny, almost invisible stitches, identifying which household they belonged to when items were sent out or shared between laundresses. You glance at the edge of one cloth, now half expecting to find such a mark, though you do not linger long enough to be certain. Your hands begin to change. The skin tightens slightly, responding to the cold and the soap. Your fingers lose some of their warmth, moving more by memory than sensation. You flex them once briefly, then continue. There is no alternative. The pile must be finished. The light in the room shifts almost without notice. What began as a dim grey now grows clearer, revealing the fine texture of the fabric, the small imperfections that were hidden before. You see more now, which means more to correct. A question that continues to surface in historical discussions is whether servants themselves took pride in the perfection of their work, or if such standards were imposed entirely from above. As you inspect a stubborn mark on the cloth before you pressing a little harder, adjusting your motion, you might feel that the answer is not simple. Perhaps it begins as expectation and becomes something else. The door opens behind you. You do not turn immediately. Footsteps enter lighter than yours, quicker. The scullery maid again carrying another small bundle. More, she says, setting them down beside you. You nod. Of course. There is always more. She lingers for a moment, watching your hands. You missed a spot, she adds quietly, pointing to a faint line near the edge of the cloth you had just set aside. You follow her gesture. She is right. The mark is small, barely visible, but it is there. You take the linen back without comment, dip it again and return to the board. The motion is slightly sharper this time, more focused. Correction. Adjustment. Learning. She does not stay long. Her footsteps fade as quickly as they arrived, leaving you once again within the steady rhythm of your work. The water grows colder. Or perhaps your hands simply stop noticing. You're no longer sure. You continue. Piece after a piece, the pile shifts from one side to the other, from unclean to clean. Though the difference is often subtle, the room fills with the faint sound of effort, the quiet persistence that defines this part of the day. At some point you become aware of your breathing again. Slow, even in time with the movement of your arms. The world narrows, not unpleasantly, just enough that nothing else intrudes. A curious observation appears in a few lesser-known writings, suggesting that repetitive domestic labour could create a kind of mental stillness, a state where thought softens and time becomes less distinct. Standing here, your hands moving without pause, you might begin to understand that feeling. The last piece of linen rests in your hands. You treat it the same as the others. No faster, no slower. When it is done, you wring it carefully, then place it with the rest. The pile is smaller now, manageable, but not gone, never gone. You straighten slowly to your back, responding with a quiet resistance. Not pain exactly, but a reminder. You roll your shoulders once, feeling the stiffness settle in, then fade just enough to continue. You reach for the next bundle, because the day does not pause. And neither do you. Your hands still carry the faint sting of soap as you leave the washing room behind. The corridor feels almost warm by comparison, though the warmth is slight more imagined than real. You carry a smaller bundle, now carefully folded linens that must be returned to their proper places upstairs. They smell cleaner than before, though the scent is never complete, always layered with the memory of use. You walk steadily. There is less hesitation in your steps now. The early uncertainty has begun to settle into something more certain, a quiet understanding of where to go, how to move, what comes next. The staircase rises ahead again. This time you do not pause. You climb with the bundle held close, your arms adjusting automatically to its weight. The house feels different now than it did before. Not louder, not yet, but more awake. There are traces of life behind the doors you pass. A soft movement, a shift of fabric, the faintest murmur of a voice. The household is stirring. You reach the upper floor and turn into a wider hallway, one that feels more polished, more deliberate. The walls here are cleaner, the light stronger, drawn in through tall windows that overlook the street. The air carries a different quality, less heavy, more arranged. This is where your presence becomes more careful. You move, but you must not be noticed. You arrive at the first room. The door is slightly ajar. You stop just before it, adjusting the linens in your hands, smoothing them once more, even though they are already neat. It is a small act, but it matters. Everything matters here. Then you enter. The room is larger than any you have stood in so far today. High ceilings, pale walls, furniture placed with intention, each piece holding its position as if it has always been there and always will be. The bed dominates the space, wide, layered, covered in fabric that falls in soft folds toward the floor. You approach it quietly. The occupant is not here. That much is clear. The bed has been left in the gentle disorder of sleep sheets, shifted pillows slightly displaced. It is not chaos. It is controlled even in its untidiness. You set the linens down, then begin. You pull back the covers, shake them lightly, smooth them again. Each motion is deliberate practice, though you are still learning the exact pressure required. Too much force disturbs the arrangement, too little leaves it uneven. A widely accepted observation in studies of domestic service is that making a bed in a wealthy household was less about comfort and more about presentation. The bed was a display, a sign of order, refinement and control. You see that now. The sheets must lie flat. The edges must align. The surface must appear untouched, as if no one has ever truly slept here. You tuck the corners, adjust the pillows, step back, then step forward again to correct a small imperfection that only you would notice. It is not enough to do the task. It must be done well. You move to the basin in the corner. The water there has already been refreshed, likely by another servant who passed through before you. You replace the cloth beside it, folding it carefully, ensuring that its edge aligns with the rim. A detail. Small, essential. There is a curious note found in some accounts of Parisian households that certain employers would inspect rooms without warning, checking for the smallest errors in arrangement. A misplaced folder streak on a surface, anything that suggested carelessness. You feel that possibility even when no one is present. You turn to the window. It's closed but not tightly. You open it slightly, allowing fresh air to enter, just enough to shift the atmosphere of the room without disturbing its balance. Outside, the city is brighter now. The sky has softened into pale blue, and the rooftops no longer sit in shadow. You hear distant sounds, wheels against stone, voices carried upward, blurred by distance. Paris is awake, but here inside everything remains controlled. You close the window halfway. Not fully. Never fully. You have learned that already. The door opens behind you. You turn at once, stepping back, lowering your gaze. A figure enters, the mistress of the house. Her presence changes the room immediately, not through sound, but through expectation. She moves with a calm certainty, her attention passing over the space, taking in what has been done without needing to ask. You remain still, invisible, or as close to it as possible. She approaches the bed. Her hand brushes lightly over the surface, testing something you cannot quite name. The tension in your shoulders tightens for a moment, though you do not move. Then she nods, just slightly. It is enough. She says nothing to you. She does not need to. Her silence is approval, or at least the absence of disapproval, which is often the same thing. She turns away, moving toward the wardrobe, her attention already shifting to the next part of her day. You take that as your signal. You gather what little remains of your task, stepping backward, then turning quietly toward the door. Before you leave, you allow yourself one small glance. Her dress. The fabric is finer than anything you will ever wear. Smooth, layered, shaped in a way that suggests effort even before it is fully arranged. You understand in that moment that this elegance depends entirely on what happens behind it. A lesser-known detail often mentioned in social histories is that servants were responsible not only for maintaining clothing, but for helping assemble the elaborate layers of fashion worn by the upper classes. Buttons, laces, ties, all of it requiring time and precision. You will be part of that soon. The door closes softly behind you. The hallway feels different now, more active, more aware. You adjust your posture slightly as you walk your steps, measured, your presence reduced as much as possible. Another room waits, then another. Each one similar yet not identical. Each requiring the same attention, the same care, the same quiet precision. A question that continues to appear in historical discussion is whether servants ever became accustomed to the beauty they worked within, or if it always remained something distant, something observed but never owned. As you smooth another sheet, adjust another pillow, you might feel that distance clearly. You touch it, you shape it, but it is not yours. The light grows stronger with each passing moment. The house is fully awake now, and you are moving within it, unseen but essential, shaping a world that will never acknowledge your hands. The hallway carries a different kind of energy now. Not loud, not hurried, but alert. Doors open and close with more intention. Footsteps pass at measured intervals. Voices begin to appear soft at first, then clearer as the house moves into its next phase. You carry an empty tray this time, light in your hands, though it will not remain that way for long. The kitchen waits again at the end of your path, and as you enter, the warmth feels stronger than before. The fire has grown, the air has thickened with scent. Something richer now, bread perhaps, or broth nearing readiness. The cook does not look up. They do not need to. Take this. A plate is already waiting. You step forward, lifting it carefully onto the tray, then another, and another. The arrangement builds, each item placed with attention to balance. Cups, utensils, a small pot. Everything has its place, even if that place is never spoken aloud. The weight settles into your arms. Not heavy yet, but enough to remind you that this is only the beginning. There is a commonly recognized detail in accounts of domestic life during this period, that servants rarely ate the same food as their employers, even when preparing elaborate meals. The contrast between what is carried upstairs and what remains below is often striking. You see that clearly now. The food on your tray is neat, refined, arranged with care. It is not meant for you. Upstairs, the cook says, already turning away. You nod. You do not speak. The tray is steady in your hands as you step back into the corridor. The movement is different now, slower, more controlled. Each step measured to keep everything in place. You reach the staircase, this one again, wider, more visible. You adjust your grip slightly before beginning the climb. The house feels more present here. The quiet privacy of the early morning has faded. You are still expected to move unnoticed, but now it requires more awareness, more attention to timing, to placement, to the spaces between others. Halfway up, a voice passes above you. Laughter. Soft but clear. You keep your eyes lowered. You continue. At the top, the hallway is brighter than before. Light spills across the floor in long shapes drawn from the tall windows. The air feels warmer here, shaped by the fires you and others have already set in motion. You move toward the first door. It is open. You enter without hesitation. The room is occupied now. The master sits near the window, dressed but not fully arranged, his attention resting on nothing in particular. He does not look at you as you approach. You move to the table, set the tray down, each item placed where it belongs. Cup, plate, utensil. The order matters. The arrangement must appear natural even though it is anything but. You step back. He reaches for the cup without acknowledging you. This is expected. There is an established understanding in many historical accounts that the highest level of service was one in which the servant's presence felt almost non-existent. To be unseen was in a sense to be successful. You stand for a moment, not waiting for instruction, but allowing space for it. None comes. You turn quietly and leave. The door closes behind you with a softness you've already learned to control. The tray is lighter now, but your work is not. You move to the next room. This one is closed. You knock once, lightly. A pause, then a voice. Enter. You do. The mistress sits at a small table. Her posture composed, her attention already focused on the beginning of her day. She glances at you briefly as you enter, then returns her gaze to the surface before her. You set the tray down, arrange it. Step back, she speaks without looking up. The tea should be hotter. Your hand still, just for a second. You nod. Yes. The word is quiet, controlled. You do not explain. You do not argue. There is nothing to explain. A subtle but telling detail noted in some domestic writings is that complaints from employers were rarely about necessity and more often about preference. Temperature, timing, presentation, small things that carried weight. You take the teapot, carefully, lift it from the tray. I will return, you say. She does not respond. You turn and leave, again your steps just as measured as before, though something inside you has shifted slightly. Not frustration, not quite. Something quieter, a recognition. You descend the staircase again, the empty space where the pot had been making the tray feel uneven. You adjust your hold, balancing it without looking down. The kitchen receives you without question. You move directly to the fire, setting the pot near the heat, waiting just long enough for the warmth to rise through it again. The cook glances at you this time, says nothing, but understands there is no need for explanation here. You wait. The second stretch. Not long, but enough to feel. Then you lift the pot again. Return to the stairs. Climb. The repetition is immediate. Almost seamless. You knock. Enter. Replace the pot. Step back. This time she nods. Slightly. It is enough. You leave once more. The hallway greets you again, unchanged yet different. You're moving faster now, not in haste but in familiarity. The pattern of the morning is forming around you, each task connecting to the next. You return to the kitchen. The scullery maid glances at you as you enter. You missed your chance, she says quietly, nodding toward a small piece of bread set aside near the edge of the table. You pause, just for a second, then shake your head. There will be another. She smiles faintly. Perhaps. There is a quiet truth in that. Servants often ate quickly, irregularly, taking moments where they could find them rather than where they were given. Meals were not fixed, they were fitted into the spaces left behind by others. You turn back to your work, another tray, another set of items, another journey upstairs. A question that continues to appear in historical reflections is whether servants grew accustomed to this rhythm or simply endured it. As you lift the tray again, feeling its weight settle into your arms, you might sense that the answer lies somewhere between the two. You step forward. The house continues, and you move within it, carrying what others will enjoy, returning to what you will not. The tray leaves your hands, but the motion stays with you. Even as you return to the corridor, your arms still remember the weight, the careful balance, the quiet attention required at every step. It lingers like an echo that has not yet faded. You step outside. Not far, just beyond the back entrance, where the air shifts again, opening into something wider, less controlled. The door closes behind you with a dull, final sound, and for a moment you simply stand there. Paris greets you, not loudly, but fully. The street is already alive, though not in the frantic way it will become later. Movement flows in steady lines. A cart rolls past its wheels, grinding softly against the uneven stones. A woman crosses the street carrying a basket, her steps quick but practiced. Somewhere nearby, a voice calls out, announcing goods that have not yet been seen. You adjust the shawl around your shoulders. The morning air is cooler here than inside the house, though the sunlight has begun to soften its edge. It reaches your face gently, almost cautiously, as if testing whether it should commit to the day. You have been sent on an errand. Simple. Defined. Bread. Or perhaps something else, depending on what the cook has decided is missing. The instruction was brief, given without ceremony, as most things are. You walk. The street stretches ahead in narrow lines bordered by buildings that lean slightly toward one another, as if sharing quiet conversations above your head. The windows vary, some open, some closed, some already filled with movement behind thin curtains. There is a widely recognized aspect of urban life in early 19th century Paris that emphasizes how densely populated and socially layered these streets were, with people from different classes moving through the same spaces, though rarely interacting as equals. You feel that layering now, even as you pass among them. You keep your pace steady, not slow, not rushed, a balance that allows you to move efficiently without drawing attention. The ground beneath your feet is uneven. Stones shift slightly, worn smooth in some places, rough in others. You adjust your steps without thinking your body responding to the surface as naturally as it does to the rhythm of your work. A bakery appears ahead. You notice it before you see it fully. The scent reaches you first. Warm, soft. A quiet promise of something simple and satisfying. You step closer. The door stands open, and inside the space glows with a kind of golden light that feels different from the fire in the kitchen. This is warmth that invites rather than demands. You enter. The baker stands behind a counter, his hands dusted lightly with flour, his movements slower than those you have left behind in the house. He looks at you not with surprise but with recognition. Another herb. Servant. Another errand. Bread, he asks. You nod. Yes. The exchange is brief, efficient. He wraps the loaf in cloth, handing it to you with a motion that has been repeated countless times. You take it carefully, feeling the heat through the fabric. It is warmer than anything you have touched this morning. For a moment you hold it a little longer than necessary. Just a moment. There is a small lesser-known detail mentioned in some accounts of urban workers that bakers often rose earlier than nearly anyone else in the city, beginning their work in the deep hours of the night so that bread would be ready by morning. Standing here, you can almost feel the continuation of their labour in the warmth of the loaf. You step back outside. The street feels brighter now. More voices, more movement. A man passes carrying tools over his shoulder. Two children run along the edge of the road, their laughter quick and fleeting. A carriage moves slowly through the centre, its presence creating a temporary path that others adjust around. You begin to walk back, the bread held securely against you. A question that continues to appear in historical interpretation is whether servants experience these brief moments outside the household as a form of freedom, or simply as another extension of duty performed in a different setting. As you move through the street, you might feel a hint of both. You're outside, but not free. Your path is already decided, your time accounted for. Still there is something here, a wider sky, a different rhythm. You pass a small group gathered near a doorway, their voices low, their attention fixed on something you cannot see. You do not slow, you do not look directly. Your role is not to observe, even if your eyes take in more than you intend. The house comes into view again, familiar, structured, waiting. You approach the door, adjusting your grip on the bread, ensuring that it remains intact, unmarked. Presentation matters even here, even now. You enter. The air changes immediately. Warmer. Closer. The sounds shift from the open flow of the street to the contained patterns of the household. You return to the kitchen. The cook glances at the bread as you place it on the table. A brief inspection. A nod. No words. It is enough. You step back. Your role in this task is complete. For now, the scullery maid catches your eye. Was it busy? She asks, her tone casual, though her hands never stop moving. A little, you reply. She nods as if that confirms something she already knew. There is no further discussion. There is no time. You move to the side, reaching for the next task without needing to be told. The rhythm resumes. Inside, outside. Then inside again. The contrast lingers for a moment, then fades as your attention returns to what is in front of you. You pick up a cloth, a basin, a piece of work that has already been waiting. The city continues beyond the walls, but you remain here, within the structure, within the pattern, within the quiet, steady unfolding of a day that has only just begun. The kitchen releases you again, though it never feels like leaving, more like shifting. You carry nothing this time, which feels unusual. Almost uncertain, as if your hands are waiting for something to hold. You move into the corridor, letting your pace slow, just slightly aware that this part of the day requires something different from you. Not speed, awareness. You reach the main hallway where the air feels lighter, more arranged. touched by the presence of those who live here rather than those who maintain it. The sounds are clearer now. Voices overlap in gentle layers. A door closes with intention. Fabric moves against fabric in quiet, deliberate motions. You step forward, then adjust. A figure approaches from the opposite end, the master. You lower your gaze at once, shifting to the side, making space without hesitation. Your body moves before your thoughts can form, guided by something you've already begun to understand. Distance, timing, absence. He passes without looking at you. The faint scent of cologne lingers for a moment, then disappears. You straighten slightly once he is gone, but not fully. Never fully. A widely accepted observation in studies of domestic service is that servants were expected to anticipate not only tasks but movement itself, predicting where their presence might interfere and removing themselves before it did. You feel that expectation now. You continue down the hall. Another door stands open. Inside, the mistress sits before a mirror, her reflection steady, composed, though her hands move with small, precise adjustments. A brush rests between her fingers, gliding through her hair with a rhythm that seems almost meditative. You stop at the threshold. Wait! She does not turn, but she speaks. You may come in. You do, quietly. Your steps barely register against the floor as you approach. There is a table nearby, already arranged with small objects, pins, ribbons, a folded garment waiting for attention. You take your place beside it. Not too close. Not too, far. A detail often mentioned in household accounts is that proximity itself was a skill, something servants had to learn through experience rather than instruction. Too near and you intrude, too distant and you fail to assist. You begin with the garment. It unfolds smoothly, revealing layers that must be arranged in a specific order. You've seen this before, though not enough times to feel entirely certain. Your hands move carefully, following memory more than confidence. She continues brushing her hair. The sound is soft, steady, almost soothing. You were slow this morning, she says, her eyes still on her reflection. You pause. Just briefly, then continue your work. Yes, there is no defense in your voice, no explanation. A small overlooked detail found in personal letters from servants suggests that acknowledging fault, even when uncertain, was often safer than offering reasons. Explanation could be seen as resistance. Agreement, even quiet agreement, maintained balance. She sets the brush down, turns slightly. Her gaze passes over the garment in your hands. You adjust one fold, then another. Her eyes linger for a moment, then move on. That's enough. You assist where needed. A pin placed, a ribbon adjusted, each action small but essential to the final appearance. The process is slower than the work in the kitchen, more delicate, requiring a different kind of attention. You become aware of your breathing again, controlled, even, matching the pace of the room. A question that continues to surface in historical discussion is whether servants developed an internal sense of identity within these roles, or if their sense of self became entirely shaped by the expectations around them. Standing here adjusting fabric that will be seen but never credited to you, the answer feels distant. You finish, step back. She rises. The garment settles into place, its shape complete, its purpose fulfilled. She turns once more toward the mirror, examining the result from different angles. You remain still, invisible again. She nods, slightly. You may go. You do not hesitate. You turn and leave your steps quiet, your presence dissolving back into the hallway as if it had never entered the room at all. The corridor feels different now, more active, more layered. Voices pass more frequently. Doors open and close in shorter intervals. The day has fully arrived, and with it the constant adjustment of your movement within it. You continue. A footman crosses your path carrying a coat draped carefully over one arm. He nods once as he passes a brief acknowledgement that feels almost significant in its rarity. You return it, a small gesture. Quick, then gone. There is a lesser-known observation in some servant records that relationships among staff were often defined by brief exchanges like this, moments of recognition that existed within the larger structure but never disrupted it. You move toward the next room. Pause. Listen. Then enter. The pattern repeats, though never exactly the same. Each room carries its own mood. each person their own expectation. You adjust. Again and again, your body learns before your mind does. Where to stand, when to speak, when not to. The house becomes something you navigate not by sight alone, but by feeling. You pass a window. Light pours through it now, stronger than before, illuminating the floor in wide, pale shapes. You slow for just a second, not enough to be noticed, but enough to register the shift. The day outside is fully underway. Inside it has been for some time. You continue forward. There is always another room, another presence, another adjustment waiting, and you move within it, shaping yourself to fit what is needed moment by moment without ever fully stopping to consider what that might mean. The hallway carries you forward, though it never feels like you choose the direction. Your steps follow what has already been set in motion. The rooms behind you fade quickly, replaced by the next, then the next again, until the house becomes less a series of spaces and more a continuous flow of expectation. You turn toward the back passage, the one that leads away from the polished floors and tall windows back toward the quieter network that holds everything together. The air shifts as you enter it, growing cooler, less arranged, more honest in its purpose. A voice reaches you before you see anyone. Low, measured, careful with that. You slow instinctively. Ahead, the butler stands near a small table inspecting a set of polished items laid out in precise order. His posture is straight, his attention unwavering. Even from a distance, you can feel the weight of his presence. You lower your gaze, not out of fear, out of understanding. There is a clear hierarchy within the house, not only between those who live above and those who serve below, but among the servants themselves. And the butler stands near the top of that quiet structure. A well-documented aspect of large Parisian households is the strict ranking system among staff, where roles such as butler, valet, cook, and maid each carried different levels of authority and responsibility. You are moving within that system now, even if its full shape is still forming in your mind. You step aside. Give him space. He does not acknowledge you directly, but his presence alone is enough to guide your movement. You wait just long enough for him to pass, then continue on your way. The kitchen comes into view again. Familiar. Active. You enter and the shift is immediate. The warmth returns. The rhythm resumes. The cook stands where they were before, though the work has advanced. Pots now simmer with purpose. Ingredients have transformed into something more complete. The air is thicker, carrying layers of scent that settle into your clothes without asking. You move to your place without needing to be told. There is a basin waiting, a stack of utensils beside it. You begin. Water, cloth, motion. The scullery maid works beside you, her movements quick, efficient, her focus unwavering. There is no need for conversation, yet the shared rhythm creates something like an understanding between you. Did she say anything? She asks quietly without looking up. You hesitate, then answer. Only that I was slow. She lets out a small breath. That means you were noticed, she says. There is something in her tone that is difficult to name. Not quite comfort, not quite warning. A subtle detail mentioned in some servant memoirs is that attention from employers was often double-edged, a sign that one's work had been seen, but also that it could be judged more closely in the future. You return to your task. The utensils are cold at first, then gradually lose that edge, as your hands warm them through repetition. You scrub, rinse, dry, set aside. The pattern forms quickly familiar from the work you have already done. Across the room, a footman enters, carrying a small stack of plates. He moves with a different kind of ease, his posture more visible, his role closer to the spaces upstairs. He sets the plates down and glances toward the cook. More guests expected, he says. The cook nods once. No surprise, just adjustment. You feel the shift immediately, not in sound, in expectation. More guests means more work, more preparation, more precision. You reach for another cloth. Continue. There is a question that appears in some historical discussions about whether servants identified more with their specific roles or with the collective function of the household. As you stand here working alongside others whose tasks differ from yours, yet connect seamlessly, the distinction feels less important than the outcome. Everything must work together, or nothing works at all. The butler appears again in the doorway. His presence quiets the room in a way that is not forced but natural. Conversations stop before they begin. movements become slightly more measured. He surveys the space, not with suspicion, with expectation. "The drawing room will be used earlier today," he says. The words are simple. The effect is not. The cook adjusts, immediately shifting a pot, calling for a different ingredient. The footman nods and turns to leave, already moving toward the next task. You feel the change ripple through your own work, though no instruction has been directed at you specifically. Faster, more precise, no room for delay. A lesser-known observation in household records suggests that communication within servant hierarchies often relied on brief, indirect statements like this, where a single change in schedule would cascade into a series of adjustments across multiple roles. You are part of that cascade now. You finish the current set of utensils, set them aside, reach for the next. The scullery maid glances at you again. "Do not fall behind," she says softly. You nod. "I will not." You are not entirely certain, but the intention is enough. The kitchen grows louder, not chaotic, but fuller. Voices overlap. Footsteps cross. The fire responds to new demands, its crackle sharper, more insistent. You move with enormous within it, not leading, not following, participating. Your hands continue their work even as your awareness expands to take in the shifting needs of the room. A pot is moved. You adjust your position. A tray is prepared. You clear space without being asked. Each action connects to another, forming a pattern that feels both structured and fluid. You are beginning to understand, not everything, but enough. The hierarchy is not only about authority. It is about flow. Who speaks? Who listens? Who acts first? Who adjusts? And where you fit within it. You glance once toward the doorway. The butler has already gone. His presence lingers only in the changes he set in motion. You return your focus to the basin. The water is warmer now, or perhaps your hands have adapted. You are no longer sure. The work continues, and you continue with it. The kitchen hum follows you as you step away again, though it softens once you pass into the corridor. Your hands are dry now, but not rested. They carry the faint roughness left behind by water and cloth, a texture that lingers no matter how briefly you leave the work behind. You flex your fingers once as you walk, not to ease discomfort, but to remind yourself they still belong to you. A tray waits near the doorway, empty, polished. You pick it up. The surface reflects a faint distorted image of the ceiling above, not clear enough to recognize, but enough to remind you that even objects here are expected to hold a certain standard. Polish. That is the next task. You move into a smaller room just beyond the main hall, one that feels quieter, more contained. Shelves line the walls, holding rows of silver items arranged with careful spacing. Cups, spoons, serving pieces, all resting in precise alignment. You set the tray down, then begin. A cloth in one hand, a piece of silver in the other. The motion is gentle at first, circular, consistent. You watch as the dull surface begins to change slowly, revealing a brighter layer beneath. It does not happen all at once. It requires patience, repetition, attention to areas that resist more than others. A well-established observation in domestic records is that maintaining silverware was a constant responsibility in affluent households, not because it was used frequently, but because its appearance signaled wealth and order to anyone who saw it. You understand that now. The shine is not for function. It is for display. You continue. Each piece demands the same care. Edges, handles, small details that are easy to overlook but impossible to ignore once seen. You turn one spoon slightly, noticing a faint tarnish near the base. You adjust your grip, applying more pressure, working the cloth into the curve until the mark begins to fade, then disappears. A small, almost forgotten detail appears in some lesser-known household notes, suggesting that certain servants could recognize the quality of silver by its weight and tone, identifying subtle differences between items that looked identical to the untrained eye. You test this without meaning to, lifting one piece, then another. They do feel different. Not by much, but enough. You place them back in line. The arrangement matters as much as the cleaning, spacing, alignment, symmetry. You step back briefly to check, then step forward again to adjust. A question that continues to appear in historical interpretation is whether tasks like this were perceived as monotonous or meditative by those who performed them. As your hands repeat the same careful motion, your mind begins to quiet, settling into the rhythm rather than resisting it. The room remains silent. Only the faint sound of cloth against metal, soft and repetitive, fills the space. Time moves. Not quickly, but steady. The light from the hallway reaches in, shifting slightly as the sun rises higher. It catches on the surfaces you have already polished, creating small points of brightness that seem almost alive. You notice them, then move on. There is always another piece. The door opens quietly. You glance up. The footman stands there, his posture relaxed but attentive. He steps inside his eyes, moving over the shelves, then settling briefly on your work. Those will be needed soon, he says. You nod. They will be ready. He studies you for a moment as if measuring something you cannot see, then nods once and leaves. The exchange is brief, but it carries weight. A subtle note found in some servant accounts suggests that approval from fellow staff, especially those positioned closer to the household's visible functions, could feel more immediate than approval from employers, even if it held less formal authority. You return to your work. The next piece, then the next. The pattern continues. Your movements become more efficient, less hesitation, more certainty. You begin to anticipate where the cloth should go, how much pressure to apply, how long to continue before moving on. You are learning, without being told, without being acknowledged. A faint sound reaches you from the hallway. Voices. Closer now. The day is advancing. You increase your pace slightly, though not enough to sacrifice precision. Speed matters, but not at the cost of the result. The final pieces sit before you. You treat them the same as the first. No shortcuts. No difference in attention. When you finish, you arrange them in their places, stepping back to view the whole. The shelves now reflect the light more clearly, not brightly, but enough. You adjust one item, then another, until everything feels balanced. A quiet completeness. You pick up the tray again. This time it will not remain empty. You begin placing the polished items onto it one by one, ensuring that each rests securely, that nothing shifts when you move. The weight returns. Familiar, manageable. You lift the tray, turn toward the door. The corridor waits. The house continues. And you step forward carrying not just objects, but the expectation that they will appear as if they have always been this way. Untouched. Perfect. Effortless. Even though you know exactly how much effort it required. The tray settles onto the side table with a quiet, controlled sound. You release it carefully, allowing your hands to relax for a brief moment before the next movement begins. The drawing room around you feels different from the spaces you have worked in so far. Softer, more deliberate. Everything here is arranged not just for use, but for impression. Light enters through tall windows filtered by thin fabric that softens its edge. Chairs sit in careful positions, angled, as if already anticipating conversation. A faint scent lingers in the air, something floral, something chosen. You step back, observe, then adjust. One piece of silver sits slightly out of alignment. You correct it with a small movement, barely noticeable yet necessary. The room demands this kind of attention. Not perfection that draws the eye, but perfection that avoids it. A commonly accepted insight in studies of upper-class households is that rooms like this functioned as stages for social interaction where appearance carried as much weight as words. You are helping prepare that stage now, even if you will not remain to see what unfolds upon it. A sound reaches you from the adjoining room. Voices, low, measured. You do not turn immediately. Then the tone shifts, sharper. You pause, just for a second, then move toward the doorway, not to listen, but because your task carries you in that direction. The door is slightly open. You pass by it, your eyes lowered, your steps quiet. Still the voices reach you. You cannot expect. It is already decided. The words blur together, not because they are unclear, but because you are not meant to hold them. You continue walking, allowing the conversation to remain behind you, even as it lingers in your awareness. There is a detail noted in some servant memoirs that those who worked within households often became unintentional witnesses to private disputes, their presence unnoticed or disregarded in moments of tension. You feel that now, not as curiosity, as caution. as caution. You move into the next room. This one is smaller, less formal, yet still arranged with care. A writing desk sits near the window, papers resting in neat stacks. Axe, pen, paper, beside them. You approach. The surface holds faint impressions, marks left by use that must be softened, not erased entirely but enough to restore the appearance of order. You take a cloth, wipe gently. The motion is slower here, more controlled, as if the room itself requires a different pace. Your mind drifts just slightly, not away from the task, but alongside it. A question that has appeared in historical writing considers whether servants developed a kind of selective attention hearing, and seeing what was necessary while allowing the rest to pass without attachment. As you work, the voices from the other room fade, replaced by the quiet rhythm of your own movement. You finish, step back. The desk looks unchanged, which means it all is correct. You turn toward the door again. The voices have softened now, their edges less sharp, their meaning less clear. The moment has passed, or at least shifted into something quieter. You do not linger. You continue. The hallway receives you once more, its light now steady, its activity fully established. Footsteps cross at intervals. A door opens nearby, then closes again. The house moves in a pattern that feels both structured and fluid. You pass a window. Pause. Just briefly. Outside the street is brighter, fuller, carrying a different kind of life. A carriage moves past, its motion smooth compared to the uneven rhythm of those on foot. A figure stands near the corner, speaking animatedly, their gestures wide, uncontained. You watch for a moment, then move on. There is work to be done inside. You return to the drawing room. The arrangement remains as you left it. Still, balanced, waiting. You move toward the fireplace. The flame has settled into a steady glow, no longer uncertain, no longer fragile. You add a small piece of wood, adjusting it carefully, ensuring that the fire continues without drawing attention to itself. A subtle note found in some domestic records mentions that a well-maintained fire was expected to exist almost unnoticed. Its presence for felt rather than unseen and You step back. The warmth touches your face lightly, then fades as you move away. The door opens behind you. You turn at once. Two figures enter. Guests. Their voices fill the room, not loudly, but with intention. Their movements are confident, unhurried, as if the space already belongs to them. You step aside. Lower your gaze. Become still. They do not look at you. They do not need to. You are part of the room, but not part of their awareness. They take their places, their conversation beginning almost immediately, flowing easily as if it has been waiting to resume. You move toward the edge of the space, then out. The door closes softly behind you. The hallway feels quieter by comparison, though the house itself remains active. You take a breath, slow and steady, allowing the moment to settle before continuing. A thought lingers, not fully formed. Something about the voices you heard, the tension, the ease that followed. A quiet realization that the life you move within holds layers you will never fully see, even as you pass through them every day. You straighten slightly, then continue. There is always another room, another surface, another small adjustment waiting to be made, and you move forward carrying what you have seen without holding it, allowing it to pass through you as quietly as you pass through the house itself. The hallway feels narrower now, though nothing has changed. It is your awareness that has shifted. You move back toward the quieter side of the house where the sounds soften and the light fades, slightly replaced by a more practical stillness. The rhythm of the morning continues behind you, but here it feels less immediate, as if you have stepped just outside its center. A small room waits ahead. You enter. It is not grand, not arranged for you. Appearance. This space serves a different purpose. A table sits near the wall, scattered with small objects that carry little value on their own, but together form something essential. A worn ledger, a pouch of coins, a folded piece of cloth that holds something hidden inside. You set your hands on the edge of the table. Pause. Then begin. The pouch opens with a soft shift. Inside a few coins, not many. You count them, slowly, not because the number is difficult, but because accuracy matters more than speed. Each coin passes through your fingers, its weight familiar, its surface worn by countless exchanges before it reached you. There is a well-recognized detail in accounts of domestic service that wages for servants were often modest and sometimes irregular, supplemented by small tips, cast-off clothing, or other minor allowances that varied depending on the household. You see that reality here, not in theory, in your hands. You place the coins back into the pouch, tied it closed, set it aside. The ledger draws your attention next. You open it carefully, turning the pages with a light touch. The entries are neat, precise, written in a hand that values clarity over ornament. Names, dates, small amounts noted beside them. You follow the lines, not because you need to, but because they are there. A quiet record of movement, of exchange, of value measured in small, careful increments. There is a lesser-known detail found in some servant accounts that individuals would occasionally keep their own private records, tracking earnings and expenses in ways that allowed them a small sense of control within a system that offered little. You wonder briefly if this ledger belongs to someone like that, or if it is simply another part of the household's order. You close it. The room remains still. You reach for the folded cloth. Unwrap it. Inside a small object. A button. Not new, but well made. You turn it between your fingers, noticing the detail, the slight shine that remains despite use. It is not yours. Nothing here is. Yet you handle it with care as if it carries weight beyond its size. A question that continues to appear in historical interpretation is whether servants viewed such small items as opportunities for personal gain or as responsibilities to be preserved without question. As you hold the button for a moment longer than necessary, the answer feels uncertain. You place it back. Wrap the cloth, return it to its place. Your hands rest briefly on the table again, then lift. There is no task left here, at least not for now. You step back into the corridor. The house meets you, again unchanged in its movement, yet different in how you experience it. The awareness of what lies beneath the visible structure lingers quiet but present. You walk. The kitchen calls you back, though not with sound, with expectation. You enter. The warmth greets you once more stronger, now layered with the scent of midday preparation. The cook moves with increased intensity, the pace of their work reflecting the approach of the next meal. You take your place, no words exchanged. No need. The scullery maid glances at you. Did you count it? She asks softly. You nod. Yes. How much? You hesitate, then answer. Enough. She smiles faintly. That's always the answer. There is a subtle understanding in her tone, something shared but not spoken directly. A detail occasionally noted in personal writings is that servants often developed quiet ways of speaking about money, avoiding exact numbers in favour of general terms that carried meaning without precision. You return to your task. A basket waits. You begin sorting. Cloth from one side, utensils from another. Each item placed where it belongs or where it will be needed next. The rhythm resumes, familiar, steady. Your hands move with more confidence now. Less hesitation, more certainty in each motion. The work no longer feels entirely new, though it is not yet easy. Across the room, the footman speaks briefly with the cook. Words exchange quickly, then gone. The pattern continues. Everything connects. Everything depends on what came before. You adjust your position slightly, making space for another movement, another task, another unseen exchange that keeps the house functioning. A thought passes through you, quiet, unformed, something about value, systems about value, about what is counted and what is not. The coins, the ledger, the button, small things, yet essential. You reach for another item. Continue. The day does not slow, but you begin to understand its shape. Not all at once, not completely, but enough to move within it without losing your place, and that for now is enough. The kitchen feels heavier now, not in sound, but in air. Heat gathers low and steady, rising from the hearth and settling around you in a way that makes each breath feel thicker than before. The rhythm has not changed, but the effort behind it has deepened. The morning's quiet precision has given way to something more sustained. You stand at the table, your hands moving through another sequence of tasks, though they feel slower now. Not because you are careless, because you are tired. It arrives gradually, a weight in your shoulders, a stiffness in your back, the kind that does not demand attention, but settles in quietly reminding you that the day is only halfway through. There is a commonly observed pattern in accounts of domestic labour that the afternoon hours often brought a different kind of fatigue, one that was not sharp or sudden, but cumulative, built from repetition and sustained effort rather than single exertions. You feel that accumulation now. You continue. The cloth in your hand moves across the surface of the table, smoothing, wiping, restoring a sense of order that never lasts for long. The wood beneath your fingers feels warmer than it did earlier, holding the heat of the room as much as the marks of use. You pause, only for a breath, then resume. The cook moves nearby, their pace unchanged, their energy seemingly untouched by the passage of time. You watch them briefly, not in comparison, but in quiet observation. There is something to learn in that steadiness. Even if you do not yet understand it fully, a faint sound draws your attention. A pot shifting. You turn just in time to steady it, your hand reaching out instinctively, adjusting its position before it can tip too far. The motion is quick, precise, almost automatic. Good, the cook says, without looking at you. One word. Simple. Yet it lands differently than silence. A detail recorded in several domestic accounts suggests that brief acknowledgements like this were often the only form of encouragement servants received, small moments that carried more weight than longer praise might have. You return to your task. The table. The cloth. The pattern. The scullery maid works beside you, her movements slightly slower now as well, though she does not stop. You exchange a glance. Nothing spoken, but understood, a shared recognition of the hour. The light in the room has changed again. Stronger now, yet softer at the edges, filtered through a thin layer of dust that moves almost invisibly in the air. It settles on surfaces as quickly as you clear them, a quiet reminder that the work is never truly finished. You reach for another piece of cloth. Continue. There is an observation that appears in some lesser-known reflections on domestic life, suggesting that repetitive labour could blur the boundaries between moments, creating a sense of time that feels stretched, almost suspended. You begin to notice that. The minutes do not pass in clear steps. They drift. One task into another, one movement into the next. You blink, and the light has shifted again. You lift a container, carry it, set it down, return. The motions repeat without needing to be named. A question that has been explored by some historians is whether servants found ways to mentally separate themselves from the monotony of such work, or if the repetition became an integral part of how they experienced their days. As your hands move without pause, your thoughts soften, not disappearing but settling into the rhythm rather than pushing against it. The kitchen door opens, a brief rush of cooler air enters, then fades as the door closes again. The footman steps inside, his expression focused, his presence adding another layer to the already full space. Soon he says to the cook, the word carries weight, not urgency. Expectation. The cook nods, adjusts a pot, shifts a pan. The sequence changes, slightly, but enough. You feel it. The pace tightens, not faster, more precise. You adjust your own movements in response, aligning yourself with the new rhythm without needing instruction. A subtle note found in some household records describes how servants often responded to changes in schedule through observation rather than direction, adapting quickly to maintain the flow of the household. You are doing that now, without thinking, without pausing. The fatigue remains, but it does not stop you. It settles into your body, becoming part of the work rather than an obstacle to it. You straighten briefly, rolling your shoulders, once feeling the stiffness shift and then settle again into a slightly different shape. It is enough. You continue. The sounds around you blend together. Fire, water, movement, voices, all of it forming a steady background that no longer distracts but supports the rhythm of your actions. You reach for another item, then another. The pattern holds. The day continues, and you move within it, carrying the quiet weight of effort without breaking its flow. The afternoon shifts again without announcing itself. You notice it not by the clock, but by the change in movement around you. The kitchen grows more organized, less exploratory. Tasks that were once scattered now align toward a single purpose. Preparation turns into readiness. You carry a folded cloth into the front hallway. The air here feels cooler than the kitchen, though the warmth still lingers faintly in your clothes. The space is brighter, shaped by light that now falls more directly through the tall windows. Dust moves slowly within it, almost graceful, as if it belongs there. A knock sounds at the front door. You pause, not because you are unsure, because this moment carries weight. The door is not yours to open, not unless directed. You step back slightly, positioning yourself just out of immediate view, your presence ready but restrained. The footman moves past you, opens the door. Voices follow. Measured, polite. A guest arrives. You lower your gaze, though your attention remains sharp. The exchange unfolds with quiet precision. Coats are offered. Greetings returned. Names spoken in tones that suggest familiarity even when it may not exist. A well-established detail in studies of Parisian social life during this era is that visits were often formalized, governed by subtle rules of timing, introduction, and display. You're standing at the edge of that ritual now, part of its structure but not its center. The guest steps inside. You shift slightly to make space, your movement almost unnoticeable yet necessary. The coat is passed to the footman, then to you. The fabric is heavier than it looks finely made, carrying a faint scent that is different from anything in the house. You take it carefully, hold it without gripping. The weight settles into your arms, reminding you once again of the balance required in even the smallest actions. You turn, carry it to the side, place it where it belongs, each motion quiet, each step controlled. A small, often overlooked detail appears in certain personal accounts, noting that servants became skilled at reading the condition of clothing to understand the status or mood of a guest, observing wear, scent and detail without appearing to look at all. You notice these things now, without trying. The hallway fills briefly with voices as the guest is led further inside. Their conversation continues flowing easily, though the words themselves do not remain with you. You return to your position. There is another knock, then another. The pattern repeats. Coats, greetings, movement. You become part of the rhythm at the door, receiving, passing, adjusting, ensuring that everything flows without interruption. The pace is steady, not rushed, but constant. A question explored in some historical reflections asks whether servants perceived these social gatherings as moments of heightened pressure or simply as an extension of their usual duties. As you move through the sequence again and again, the distinction feels less important than the execution. You adapt, each guest slightly different, each coat requiring a slightly different hold, each exchange carrying its own tone. You adjust, without pause. At one point, a guest glances at you, only briefly. Their eyes pass over you, then move on as if confirming something without needing to name it. You lower your gaze further. The moment passes. There is no interaction. Yet it lingers for a second longer than expected. The hallway grows fuller, then empties again as the guests move deeper into the house. You stand still, listening, waiting. The sounds shift from arrival to conversation now contained within the rooms beyond. Laughter rises, then settles. Voices overlap, then separate. You remain where you are, ready. The footman returns. More will come, he says quietly. You nod. Of course, there is always more. You adjust the position of the remaining coats, ensuring that nothing is out of place. The arrangement matters even when no one is looking, especially then. A subtle observation found in some household descriptions suggests that the front hallway functioned as a transitional space where the outside world was briefly held before being absorbed into the controlled environment of the home. You feel that transition now. You stand within it, between street and room, between movement and stillness. The door opens again. Another arrival. You step forward. The motion is immediate, fluid, as if it has always been yours. You receive the coat, turn, place it, return. The pattern continues. Your body moves with more certainty now, less thought required, more instinct guiding each action. The light shifts slightly. The afternoon deepens, and still you remain at the edge of it all, shaping the flow without ever entering it. The door closes once more. You step back. The hallway settles into a quieter state again, though the energy remains held within the walls, waiting for the next movement to begin. You take a breath, slow, even, then return to your place, because the day is not finished. Not yet. The hallway releases you once more, and you follow the quieter passage back toward the working rooms. The shift is immediate. Voices soften behind you, replaced by the steady, practical sounds of labour. The warmth thickens again, though it feels different now, heavier, carrying moisture as well as heat. You enter the laundry space. Steam meets you at the door. It rises in slow curling layers, filling the room with a softness that blurs edges and dulls sharp lines. The air is damp, warm against your face, clinging lightly to your skin. You step inside. The basins are full, cloth moves through water with quiet persistence, hands working in steady patterns that never quite stop. The scullery maid stands near one basin, her sleeves pushed higher now, her movements slower but still precise. You join her. No words needed. The next bundle waits. You take it, unfold, submerge. The water is warmer than before, though not comfortable. It carries a different sensation, one that softens the fabric but weighs it down, making each movement heavier. You lift the cloth, lay it across the board, begin again. A recognised detail in accounts of domestic labour is that laundering was often divided into stages throughout the day, with different temperatures of water used for different purposes, each requiring its own timing and attention. You feel that shift now. The morning's sharp cold replaced by this thick enveloping warmth. Your hands move more slowly, not by choice, by necessity. The fabric resists in a different way, heavier, less responsive. You adjust your grip, your pressure, your rhythm. The motion continues, back and forth, steady. The steam gathers around you, softening sound as well as sight. The room feels smaller, contained within its own atmosphere, separate from the rest of the house. A small, curious detail appears in some lesser-known observations, noting that prolonged exposure to steam and soap could alter the texture of a servant's hands, leaving them rough, pale, and marked in ways that never fully disappeared. You glance at your fingers briefly. They do look different, not dramatically, but enough. You return to the work. There is no time to consider it further. The scullery maid shifts beside you, lifting a piece of cloth and wringing it with practiced strength. Water falls back into the basin in a steady stream, the sound softened by the thick air. Careful, she says, nodding toward the edge of your board. You follow her gaze. The cloth has begun to slip. You adjust it quickly, pressing it flat, securing it before it can fall. Thank you, you say. She nods once, then continues. The exchange is brief, functional, yet it carries a quiet awareness of shared effort. A question that has been raised in some historical discussions asks whether the bonds between servants were shaped more by necessity than by choice, formed through proximity and shared labour rather than personal connection. As you work beside her, the answer feels less important than the presence itself. You are not alone, even if no one says it aloud. The heat builds, not sharply, gradually. Your breathing adjusts, becoming slower, deeper, matching the density of the air. Sweat gathers lightly at your temples, though it is difficult to distinguish from the moisture already present in the room. You continue. The bundle grows smaller. Each piece completed moves to the side, joining the others in a quiet line of progress. You lift another, then another. The repetition holds, yet something changes. The motion feels less mechanical now, more deliberate. As if your body has settled fully into the rhythm, no longer resisting it, no longer questioning its repetition. You are within it. A subtle observation found in certain personal accounts suggests that physical labour, when sustained over time, can create a kind of focused stillness, where attention narrows and the outside world fades. You begin to feel that now. The room, the water, the cloth, your hands, everything else softens. The door opens. A brief rush of cooler air enters, cutting through the steam for just a moment before fading again. Another servant steps in, carrying additional linens, their expression already shaped by the work they bring with them. They set the bundle down. Leave. No words exchanged. The pile grows again. You do not react. You simply continue. The day does not pause for completion. It extends. Always. You wring another piece of cloth, the motion firm, controlled the water falling away in a steady rhythm. Your arms feel heavier now, the effort more noticeable, yet still manageable. You adjust your stance slightly, shift your weight, continue. The light in the room is softer now, filtered through the steam, diffused in a way that makes it difficult to judge the time outside, and the day moves on, but here it feels suspended. You finish another piece, set it aside, reach for the next. The pattern remains, unbroken, and you move within it, your presence steady, your effort quiet, your work continuing without interruption as the hours gather around you. The steam loosens its hold as you step out of the laundry room. Cooler air meets your face lighter, easier to breathe, though it carries a faint dryness that feels unfamiliar after so much warmth. You pause for a fraction of a second in the corridor, letting your body adjust, letting your senses sharpen again. Then you move. The house has shifted once more. There is a different kind of anticipation now, one that gathers quietly but steadily. The afternoon has given way to something more structured, more deliberate. The next phase is approaching. Dinner. You return to the kitchen. The change is immediate. The room feels more focused than before, less scattered, every movement aligned toward a single outcome. The cook stands at the center of it all, their attention fixed, their hands moving with a precision that allows no hesitation. The air is rich, layered, carrying scents that blend into something more complex than anything earlier in the day. You take your place. There is no need for instruction. The sequence is understood. You reach for a tray, begin arranging. Plates first, then utensils, then the smaller details that complete the setting. Each piece must sit exactly where it belongs, not only for function but for appearance. A well-established insight found in studies of elite dining culture notes that meals in affluent households were as much about display as nourishment, with each course presented in a manner that reinforced status and refinement. You see that clearly now. The food is only part of it. The arrangement, the timing, the precision, all of it matters. The cook places a dish before you. You lift it carefully, feeling the heat through the base, adjusting your grip so that it remains steady. Another dish follows, then another. The tray fills its weight building, gradually requiring more attention with each addition. You balance it, test the hold, then turn. The corridor awaits. Your steps are slower now, not from fatigue, but from necessity. Each movement must account for the weight you carry, for the space around you, for the unseen lines that guide your path. You reach the dining room. The door is already open. Light fills the space brighter than the rooms before, reflecting off surfaces that have been prepared long before you arrived. The table stretches across the center, set with precision, each place arranged in quiet symmetry. Guests are already seated. Their conversation flows in soft layers, overlapping, rising and falling in tones that suggest ease. You enter, silently. You move toward the table. The tray remains steady in your hands, though your awareness sharpens, every detail becoming more immediate. You place the first dish, then the next, each movement controlled, each step measured, no sound beyond what is necessary. A subtle observation appears in some historical writings, suggesting that serving during formal meals required not only physical coordination, but an awareness of timing that bordered on instinct, allowing servants to move in harmony with the pace of conversation. You begin to feel that now, when to step forward, when to step back, when to wait. You adjust your position as another servant enters from the opposite side, their movements aligning with yours without direct communication. The pattern forms quickly, each of you aware of the other without needing to look. The table fills. The guests continue speaking, their attention fixed on one another, on the exchange of words, of ideas, of presence. You remain at the edge of it, close, but not part of it. A guest lifts a glass. You notice immediately. Step forward. Refill. Step back. The motion is soothed practice, though you have only begun to understand it. There is a quiet expectation that nothing should interrupt the flow of the meal. No delay. No error. Everything must appear effortless, even when it is anything but. You continue. The dishes change, one removed, another placed. The sequence unfolds in careful order, each part leading into the next without pause. A question that continues to appear in historical reflection is whether servants experience these moments as heightened pressure or as a form of practice performance where repetition created confidence over time. As you move through the sequence, your body begins to respond more quickly, more naturally, each action connecting to the next with less hesitation. You are learning. Within the movement itself, the room grows warmer, not from the fire, from the presence of people, from the layering of voices, of breath, of attention. You adjust again. A chair shifts slightly. You move to correct its position. A napkin falls. You retrieve it before it draws notice. Each action small, each one necessary. A lesser-known detail found in some accounts mentions that servants were often trained to anticipate disruptions before they occurred. developing a kind of heightened awareness that allowed them to maintain order without drawing attention. You feel that awareness building now. Not fully formed, but present. The meal continues. Time moves, not in clear steps, but in transitions, course to course, moment to moment. You remain within it, moving as needed, adjusting as required, maintaining the quiet structure that allows everything else to appear seamless. The final dish is placed. The table settles. The conversation deepens, no longer focused on arrival or presentation, but on something more sustained. You step back, your role in this moment complete. For now, you turn, leave the room. The door closes softly behind you. The corridor feels cooler, quieter, though the work is far from finished. You take a breath, then continue, because the evening is only beginning. The door closes behind you and the sound of conversation softens into a distant murmur. For a moment, the corridor feels almost empty, not silent, but less demanding. You stand there briefly, your hand still shaped by the weight of the tray you no longer carry. The absence of it feels noticeable, as if something is missing, even though the work continues without pause. Then you move, back toward the kitchen. The familiar path draws you in, each turn already known, each step placed without hesitation. The air grows warmer again as you approach, the scent of food deepening, shifting towards something richer, more finished. You enter. The kitchen is in transition, not as intense as before, but not at rest either. The cook moves with a quieter urgency, now preparing what comes after the meal, not the meal itself. The scullery maid stands at the basin again, her hands already submerged her work, beginning before the first dish is returned. You take your place. The first tray arrives, plates stacked carefully, though not perfectly. The remains of the meal linger on them, traces of what has just passed through the dining room. You begin. Scrape. Rinse. Set aside. The motion is familiar, now your hands moving with more certainty than before. There is less hesitation, less need to think through each step. A commonly noted aspect of domestic service is that the work after meals often required as much effort as the preparation itself, with cleaning and resetting taking place immediately to maintain the household's rhythm. You feel that continuation now. The meal is over, but the work remains. Another tray arrives, then another. The pace increases slightly, though never becomes rushed. Everything must be done quickly but also correctly. You adjust. Your movements tighten. More efficient, more precise. The scullery maid glances at you. "Do not let them dry," she says, nodding toward a plate you have set aside. You catch it just in time, dipping it back into the water, wiping it clean before the surface can set. "Thank you," you say. She nods once, then continues. A small overlooked detail appears in certain accounts, noting that dried food on dishes was more difficult to remove, making timing an essential part of the cleaning process. You remember that now? Not as instruction, as practice. The water grows clouded. You replace it. The motion is automatic, your body responding without pause. Lift, empty, refill, return. The rhythm holds. Across the room, the cook begins to clear their own space, setting aside tools, covering what remains, preparing for the next stage of the evening. You continue. Plate after plate, utensil after utensil. The pile shifts, slowly, from one side to the other. A question that has been raised in historical discussions considers whether servants experienced a sense of completion at the end of tasks, or if the constant flow of work prevented any clear boundary between beginning and end. As you move through the sequence, the answer feels distant. There is no clear finish, only continuation. The kitchen door opens, a brief movement. Another servant enters carrying a final tray from the dining room. "The last of it," they say. You nod. The phrase carries a kind of quiet relief, though it does not change your pace. You take the tray, begin again. The room grows quieter as the work narrows. Fewer tasks remaining, fewer movements required. The intensity softens, though the effort continues. You wipe your hands briefly on a cloth, then return them to the water. There is no true pause, only small adjustments. The last plate is cleaned, set aside. The basin stands still. For a moment, you exhale, slowly. The scullery maid straightens beside you, rolling her shoulders once, then twice, as if resetting something within herself. "Not finished," she says, almost as a reminder. You nod. "I know. There are still surfaces to clear, tools to store, fires to manage. The work changes shape, but it does not end." You move toward the hearth. The flames have settled lower now, steadier. You adjust the wood, shifting it slightly, ensuring that it will burn evenly through the night without requiring constant attention. A lesser-known detail in household records suggests that managing fires at night was considered a skilled task requiring an understanding of how long different types of wood would burn and how to maintain heat without excess. You watch the flame for a moment, then step back. The kitchen begins to empty. One by one, the others finish their tasks, moving out of the room with quiet steps, their presence fading into the corridors beyond. You remain a moment longer, checking, adjusting, ensuring that nothing has been left undone. The space feels different now, less crowded, more still. You pick up the last cloth, wipe the table once more. The motion is slower now, not from fatigue, but from the absence of urgency. You set the cloth aside, step back. The kitchen rests. Not fully, but enough. You turn, move toward the door. The corridor waits again, cooler, quieter, carrying the faint echo of the evening that continues elsewhere in the house. You take a breath, then step forward, because there is still more to do before the day can end. The corridor feels longer now than it did this morning, not because it has changed, but because your body has. Each step carries a trace of the day, a quiet reminder of everything that has already passed through your hands. The air is cooler here, easier to breathe, though it holds a faint stillness that suggests the house is beginning to settle. You walk more slowly, not stopping, just allowing your pace to soften. A small room waits at the end of the passage, one you have passed before without entering. The door stands slightly open, a thin line of light slipping through the gap. You hesitate. Then step inside. It is not a grand room, not arranged here, so for display. A simple table, a few chairs, a small fire lower than the others in the house, its glow steady but modest. Two figures sit there, the scullery maid and the footman. They look up as you enter, their expressions shifting briefly from conversation to recognition. "You are late," the footman says, though his tone carries no real accusation. "Working," you reply. He nods as if that explains everything. It does. You step further into the room, closing the door gently behind you. The space feels warmer than the corridor, though not in the same way as the kitchen. This warmth is quieter, less demanding. You take a seat carefully. Your body notices immediately the difference, the relief. A widely recognized aspect of servant life is that moments of rest were often brief and irregular, taken when opportunity allowed rather than when it was scheduled. You feel that now. This is not a break. It is a pause, temporary, still valuable. The scullery maid slides a small piece of bread toward you. "You missed it earlier," she says. You take it. The warmth has forward, but it is still soft, still welcome. "Thank you." You eat slowly, not out of choice, out of awareness. Each bite matters more than it should. A faint smile passes between them, something shared, something understood without words. There is a small, lesser-known detail mentioned in some personal accounts, suggesting that servants often formed quiet rituals around these moments, sharing food stories or simply presence in ways that were invisible to the household above. You begin to see that now. The footman leans back slightly, stretching his legs. "They talked for hours," he says. "In the dining room." You nod. "Yes." He exhales softly, as if nothing else exists. The scullery maid glances at him. For them it does not. There is no bitterness in her voice, only recognition. A question explored in some historical writing considers whether servants felt resentment toward the lives they supported, or if their perspective shifted over time into something more neutral, more detached. Sitting here listening, the answer feels somewhere in between. You take another bite. The room is quiet for a moment, not empty, comfortable. The fire shifts slightly, a small sound that fills the space without interrupting it. "You did well today," the scullery maid says suddenly. You look up, surprised. "I only worked," you reply. She shrugs. "That is what doing well is." The footman nods in agreement, though he says nothing. A brief acknowledgement. Yet it settles differently than the words from earlier in the day. It stays longer. You finish the bread. Set your hands in your lap. The fatigue feels clearer now that you have stopped moving. It settles into your muscles, your shoulders, your back, no longer hidden by motion. You take a slow breath, then another. The room holds you for a moment longer. A subtle observation found in certain accounts suggests that companionship among servants often existed in these small unguarded intervals where the structure of the household loosened just enough to allow something more personal to emerge. You feel that now, not as conversation, as presence. The footman stands first. "I should go," he says. The scullery maid nods. Before they notice, he smiles faintly. They always notice. Then he leaves. The door opens, closes. The room shifts again. You and the scullery maid remain. She leans forward slightly, adjusting the fire with a small movement, ensuring it will last a little longer. "You will get used to it," she says. "To what?" "All of it." You consider that, then nod. "I think I am already beginning to." She smiles. "A little more this time?" That is how it happens. The moment lingers, then fades. You stand, slowly. Your body resists for a second, then follows. The chair returns to stillness behind you. You move toward the door, pause, look back once. The room remains as it was, quiet, warm, separate. Then you leave. The corridor receives you again, cooler, more structured, pulling you back into the shape of the house. You straighten slightly, adjust your pace. The pause is over. The day is not, and you continue forward, carrying the brief comfort of that room with you, even as it begins to fade. The corridor feels quieter now, though not empty. The sounds of the evening continue behind closed doors, softened into a distant murmur that no longer demands your attention. Your steps carry you forward with less urgency, yet not without purpose. There is still a direction to follow, even if it feels less clearly defined than before. You move toward the back stair, the one that leads upward, away from the main rooms. The air shifts as you approach it, growing cooler, thinner, as if the house itself is releasing its hold on the day. You begin to climb. Each step feels more deliberate now, your body aware of the effort in a way it was not earlier. The fatigue has settled, fully no longer hidden by movement or distraction. It moves with you. A broadly acknowledged pattern in accounts of domestic service is that the evening hours often brought a different kind of reflection, when the pace slowed enough for thoughts to surface, even if only briefly. You feel that opening now. Your mind moves different. Not for there! More freely. You reach the first landing. Pause. Rest your hand lightly against the wall. The surface is cool beneath your fingers, grounding steady. Then you continue. The stairs narrow. As you climb higher, the space becoming more enclosed, more familiar. The sounds of the house fade further, with each step replaced by a quieter stillness that belongs only to this part of the building. You think, not about the next task, but about what lies beyond this routine. A small, often overlooked detail in historical records notes that many servants in 19th century cities viewed their work as temporary, a stage in life that might lead to something else, whether marriage, a different position, or independence. You consider that. Is this temporary or permanent? The question does not demand an answer. It simply exists. You reach the top of the stairs. The attic corridor greets you again just as it did this morning, though it feels different now. The darkness has softened the faint light from small windows, casting pale shapes along the walls. You walk slowly. There is no need to hurry here. Not anymore. A question that continues to appear in historical interpretation asks whether servants allowed themselves to imagine lives beyond their roles, or if such thoughts were set aside in favour of immediate survival. You do not know, but the thought lingers. A life beyond this. What would it look like? The idea forms quietly, without detail, without urgency. It is not a plan, it is not even a hope. Just a possibility. You reach your door. Your hand rests on the handle, just as it did this morning. The moment feels familiar, yet not the same. You open it. The room welcomes you back. Small, cold, unchanged. The bed waits where you left it, the blankets slightly disturbed from your earlier departure. The air holds the faint chill of evening, though it feels less sharp now, or perhaps you have simply grown used to it. You step inside, close the door. The quiet settles around you more completely here, separate from the rest of the house, yet still connected in ways you cannot fully see. You move toward the window, open it slightly. The night air slips in cooler, carrying distant sounds from the city below. A carriage passes somewhere far off. A voice calls out, softer now, less urgent than during the day. Paris continues, even as the house begins to rest. A subtle observation found in some personal accounts suggests that servants often experience the city only in fragments, brief glimpses taken during errands or moments like this, rather than as a continuous presence. You understand that now. You see it, but only in pieces. You close the window halfway. Turn back toward the room. There is little to arrange here, little to prepare. Your world above the stairs is simpler, though not easier. You sit on the edge of the bed. The wood creaks softly beneath your weight just as it did this morning. You lean forward slightly, your hands resting loosely in your lap. The day replays itself, not in full, in fragments. The kitchen, the hallway, the voices, the work. Each moment passing through your mind without lingering too long. You exhale, slow, even. The fatigue feels deeper now, no longer held back by motion. It settles into you fully, a quiet presence that asks nothing more than rest. A question sometimes raised in historical writing considers whether servants found satisfaction in the completion of a day's work or if the cycle simply reset without pause. Sitting here, the answer feels uncertain. There is no clear ending, only this moment. Between one day and the next, you lie back. The blanket feels rough against your hands, but familiar. You pull it closer, not for comfort, for habit. The room remains still. The house below continues, though its sounds are distant now, softened by walls and distance. You close your eyes. Not fully, just enough to rest them. The thoughts fade, the questions quiet, and you remain there suspended between what has been and what will come, letting the day settle around you before it disappears. You lie there for a moment longer than you expect. Not asleep, not fully awake. Just resting in that narrow space where the day loosens its grip but does not quite release you yet. The attic is quiet, more than before. The house below has softened into a distant presence. Its earlier movements reduce to faint impressions that drift upward and then disappear. You listen for a moment, not searching for anything specific, just noticing what remains. A footstep far below, a door closing, then less, then almost nothing. You open your eyes again. The room has not changed. It never does. The same slanted ceiling, the same small window, the same bed that holds you without comfort but without complaint. You sit up slowly. Your body responds with a quiet resistance, the fatigue now fully settled. No longer something you can move through, but something you must move with. You place your feet on the floor. The wood is cooler again. You notice it, then let it pass. There are small things left to do. Not many, but enough. You reach for your clothes, adjusting them, folding what can be folded, setting aside what will be worn again tomorrow. The motions are simple, almost automatic, requiring little thought. A frequently cited point in studies of servant life is that even personal spaces were expected to be kept in order, not for display, but as part of the discipline that shaped daily routine. You follow that expectation without needing to think about it. You stand, move to the window, open it just enough to let the night air return. It's cooler now than before, carrying a quiet stillness that feels different from the morning. The city is not asleep, but it has changed. Its movements are slower, its sounds more distant, as if it has drawn inward. A small curious detail mentioned in certain accounts notes that many servants rarely saw the city at night, their days beginning too early and ending too late to fully experience it. You see it now, but only in part. A slice of rooftops, a narrow line of a few scattered lights that flicker and fade. You close the window. Turn back. The room holds you again. You sit on the edge of the bed once more, your hands resting loosely, your posture softer than before. The tension of the day has eased, though not disappeared. It lingers in your muscles, your joints, a quiet reminder of everything that has passed. A question that continues to appear in historical reflection asks whether servants measured their lives in days, in years, or in something less defined, shaped more by repetition than by change. You consider that, briefly, then let it go, because the answer does not change what comes next. You lie down, this time fully. The blanket settles over you, its weight familiar, its texture unchanged. You adjust it slightly, not seeking comfort, but finding a position that allows rest to arrive more easily. Your breathing slows, gradually, evenly. The room fades at the edges, not disappearing, softening. The sounds below grow quieter still until they are no longer something you follow, but something that exists beyond your awareness. You feel your body release the day in small ways. Your shoulders sink, your hands rest more fully. Your thoughts loosen their hold, no longer moving from one moment to the next, but settling into stillness. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to carry, only this quiet, this pause. A final observation drawn from personal accounts suggests that for many servants, rest was not a luxury but a necessity that arrived without ceremony, taken wherever and whenever it could be found. You understand that now. You allow it. The room grows softer. The edges blur. The day fades completely, and you drift. Slowly, gently, without resistance. The night holds you, and the house for the first time asks nothing more. The pace slows further. Now the thoughts stretching out, each one taking longer to form, longer to fade. Your breathing becomes the only rhythm that matters, steady and calm, rising and falling without effort. You feel the space around you expand not physically but in perception, as if the room has grown quieter, deeper, more distant. There is no urgency here, no expectation, no movement required, only rest. Your body settles fully into the surface beneath you. The small tensions that remained easing away one by one until there is nothing left to hold on to. The sounds of the city fade completely. The house disappears. Even the memory of the day softens, losing its shape, its edges, until it becomes something distant and unimportant. You remain, still, calm, at ease, and as sleep finally arrives, it does so gently without interruption, carrying you away from the narrow attic, from the long corridors, from the endless rhythm of work into something quieter, something softer, something entirely your own. Sweet dreams.